Hello and welcome to Sports Today. This morning on Sports Today, we were speaking to a number of the Indian coaching staff, and they said, Australia is now done. And I'm like, what? And they were like, Australia is now done. While we celebrate for a couple of days, it is very important to be in the present and look forward to the England series because that's what is now of paramount importance for us to be able to make the World Test Championship final. So we on Sports Today also decided that yes, while we continue to celebrate Australia and the victory there, unbelievable that it is, we also need to start building up for the England series. And that's what we have done here. We have assembled a stellar cast. We have got someone who came to our own country and actually beat us. Very rare feat in 2011-12, bowled exceedingly well. And perhaps one of the rarest English wins, series wins on Indian soil. He was the architect of that. So joining us from England, currently previewing and working on the England-Sri Lanka series, which is on England, is 134 for 3 Sri Lanka at the moment, 3 wickets to Jimmy Anderson, and a partnership brewing between Angelo Matthews and Dinesh Chandimal. Joining us from England, well-known commentator now, but more importantly for us, one of the best of his times, Monty Panesar. Joining me are our own Deep Das Gupta and Rajarshi Gupta. So we will start previewing that. But before that, Irfan has to speak to us our important Irfan Pathan message that you have to download this app. Take a look.
क्या आप भी किसी अपने सपने मेरे तुम्हारे टीम 11 पे टीम बना रहे हो और बच्चों के साथ खेल रहे हो? हमारे साथ खेलोगे? हाउस पे खेलो लेजेंड्स के साथ. हमें हरा और जीतो डबल कैश. Log on to houseit.com and win real cash.
Monty, welcome and good to see you because the new strain and all that we are hearing, worrying news coming out of England, hopefully the virus will soon be under control and vaccination will work. But what we have on our hand in a couple of weeks, Monty, is red hot. England v India, after what England has done in Sri Lanka and what India has done in Australia, it is a super series. How are you looking at it?
Yeah, I think this is a big series now. I think all eyes are going to be on England versus India, and England, they're currently playing, in the second test match where the conditions, slightly are, sort of favouring the batsman, and it'll be, I think India will be looking at this test match to see how England respond on a pitch that is slightly flatter. What kind of pitches should we produce against England, especially in Ahmedabad, where I think the creator has already said that they can produce whatever pitch they want. So that will be something that I think the Indian team will be looking at, especially Ravi Shastri. So, depending on how England perform in this test match, I think India will be, trying to work out, shall we put more grass on the wicket? Shall we not? There's Stuart Broad, Jimmy Anderson to think about. But this series is the big series, Indian batsmen against the English bowlers in Indian conditions. I think everyone will be looking forward to.
Deep, clearly 2011-12 showed us that you cannot do rank turners. Monty Panesar and Graham Swan sort of ran through us, and despite having our best batting attack. So what is your thought? I mean, obviously this Indian side is very different from what we have seen in Australia. I mean, it's a hugely mentally tough side which will go in with a lot of momentum. So what do you think India will want to do going into that first test in Chennai?
It's a tricky one, but anyways, in Chennai you can't really produce a green top. But even a rank turner. I mean, let's not go back to 2011 because you have quality bowlers like Monty here and Swanee. Obviously, I mean, I won't at this point in time compare Don Best and Jack Leach with these two guys. But having said that, they won the test match against Sri Lanka in Sri Lanka on a surface which was turning. So obviously, I mean, I'm sure the Indian management would be looking at that. But most importantly, I think this is a big series from India because of two reasons. One is this is the very next series after this newfound reputation that India has got now from the Australia series, and secondly, a lot of the big names are returning, starting from the captain himself to Shami. Tobinga would be back, someone like Pandya and all are back as well. So yeah, I mean, this is a big series to kind of cement this new reputation that India has got. And against India, obviously, you've got a team who, like India, now you can't prepare a green top like when India travels abroad. You can't prepare a rank turner when overseas teams come to India. So got to be very, very careful. This is a very good England side who's coming off from hopefully a win in the second test as well. So that'll be huge. And obviously, I mean, a green top, you've got to be very, very careful. You still have someone like an Anderson and Woods and Stokes and all of them. So it's going to be a tricky one.
It will be. Rajashi, before I go to Monty and Deep again, see, one thing I have to ask you as a senior journalist. Our problem in India is also impatience and short-term memory. Already there is a talk in a section of, and I'm sorry for the use of this word, I call them idiots, who are asking for Virat Kohli's head. Virat Kohli should be removed. Virat Kohli should be this. For God's sake, get a life. Your thoughts on that as a senior journalist, and I will want these two cricketers who obviously will, people will take more seriously than perhaps, journalists talking. But for God's sake, can these people have a life? Rajoshi, you first, then Monty, then Deep. Are we even serious when we are targeting Virat Kohli?
This is ridiculous, Boria. And if I may say, it's just for people to take that 15 minutes of fame. Virat Kohli has started this process, right? And this is why Indian cricket is where it is. You go back to Saurav Ganguly, you look at Rahul Dravid under Kumble's leadership, MS Dhoni for a decade, and from where Virat Kohli has taken this team, whether it's the way he has spruced up the pace attack, the aggression of the team. It is all a process. And, Ravi Shastri himself said that the other day. It is a process. You just don't, like the term you use, short-term memory. Ajinkya Rahane did a fabulous job. Good for him, good for us, good for India, right? You have a crack leadership team of Virat Kohli, Ajinkya Rahane, Cheteshwar Pujara, Rohit Sharma, R. Ashwin in the Indian test team. Then you have the other seniors supporting Virat Kohli in the limited overs formats. For me, Virat Kohli is an ace captain, astute leader, and he is the way he is, right? He's aggression. He wears his passion on his sleeves. He speaks his heart out. That's the way he plays. And I think he's a terrific character to have. And I saw one of your tweets, Boria, earlier in the day, where you said, he's not just a boon to Indian cricket. He's a great asset for world cricket. And you need men like this. And there is no reason for such talk to circulate. I find this ridiculous. And even as a journalist, I fail to decipher the real logic behind replacing Virat Kohli as captain. No need. He's got the team where it is.
Monty, you now and then Deep. Can you put this to rest, please, on our show? This whole ridiculous rubbish that's going on in India, remove Virat as captain. Your thoughts as a cricketer?
I think in England we have slightly different views. We had the likes of Michael Vaughan thinking that Virat Kohli will able to maybe, score more runs, able to extend, his the runs that he scores once he retires, in Test cricket one day and obviously T20, but particularly in Test matches. But when you look at his record, it's second to none, even when he was captain. So I think if Virat doesn't, fire like we've seen in India, then people start questioning, should Virat Kohli, just focus on his batting. But like, we've seen his record. It's an amazing record, and he, the intensity he brings to the game, the passion and that drive. The two contrasting captains, Ajinkya Rahane is a lot more calmer, and tactically, I think, as Virat Kohli, but Virat Kohli has that, the emotion that he brings, and which cricket fans love to see. So, I'm sure Virat Kohli should continue to captain because he's been a terrific player over the last decade.
Deep, seriously speaking, where is this coming from? I mean, do you sense an agenda? Because for God's sake, the team doesn't believe in this. Having spoken to Ajju is the last person. Ravi Shastri is the last person. Where is this coming from? And if anything, this is actually taking the gloss away from the victory and trying to make a divisive point.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. But listen, you can understand where it's coming from. I mean, listen, someone like Virat is a different kind of a character, different kind of a captain. Ajinkya is a different kind of a captain, and they have, both of them are aggressive. It's just that, Virat is more expressive and Ajinkya is not. But both of them are equally aggressive. So, and most importantly, I think this whole conversation is a non-starter as far as I'm concerned, is because Virat wasn't even there. So why even talking about Virat when he wasn't there? It's like you're talking about somebody behind his back. I mean, listen, I mean, I can understand if India goes on to kind of lose this series, does not qualify for World Test Championship, then you go to England, doesn't play well under his captaincy. I think then you might have a reason to start this discussion or a debate. But at this point in time, I mean, as Rajeshri mentioned, I think I mean, it's just good news that that leadership group has become bigger now. There are more people who are more vocal now, and this is only good for Indian cricket. And I don't know where this is coming from, but it does not make sense to me. Like I said, because he wasn't even there. So somebody who's not there, let's not even get him into this. And let's not forget, this is the same captain under which India was world number one, ICC number one ranked test team from 2017 all the way till this new percentage thing happened with the ICC rankings. So yeah, for 3 years, Indian team's been number one. So I don't know where this is coming from, but I don't think for me. Listen, we'll have that chat because let's not forget this is a very important series. India and England is an important series. India qualifies for World Test Championship. You don't want to have this conversation right now. You want the team to focus and the leader to focus on the team and on his performances and not this off the field stuff.
And so please, Deep Das Gupta and Monty Panesar said what they said. Rajoshi, this talk that is happening, do you think it sort of impacts players, or you think they can be immune to this? Because there is a lot of media going around. I mean, senior journalists have commented on this, sadly so. But your thoughts, I mean, do you think the players can sort of be immune to all of this talk going around? Because for me, this talk is cheap. It's like toilet paper.
Absolutely, talk costs nothing, and I'm sure certain criticism might impact players, especially the younger ones. But this particular conversation you're referring to, Boria, like Deep said, is a non-starter in the first place, and I think if it does drift over to the team and the dressing room, they'd laugh it off because it is Virat Kohli's team. Virat Kohli has laid this process in place with Ravi Shastri and the other senior players that we just mentioned. So there is no doubting that. I mean, the man has done so much for Indian cricket. I mean, one instance, even in this panel, or the viewers watching, one instance where you can actually say Virat Kohli is a failure as a captain. He's a massive success. From the point he took over when MS Dhoni retired from Test cricket till the point MS Dhoni stepped down as limited overs captain, this guy has been a success. He's won your series in Australia. He's won your series at home. That 2016-17 series, that was as dominant a series for any home captain as you'd ever see. So even if this conversation does drift over to the Indian dressing room, I think for one, they'll laugh it off. I'm sure there are other conversations that might impact players on form and personal, then some comments that get personal. But this is just funny, ludicrous, and ridiculous as far as I'm concerned.
Sorry, can I also add to this, Boria? What I also think is Virat also needs to speak to the team and also adapt things that has worked in the last few test matches, because this looked like a different Indian team as well. So from Virat's perspective, also, it is important to kind of speak what happened during the last month or last 3 test matches, and maybe also try and adapt things which has worked, maybe adapt into his captaincy style as well. So that won't be a bad idea. And also, I mean, as I mentioned, as Rashi also mentioned, you've got voices now in that side as well who are louder, and that's only good news.
Sport is always about evolution, and learning never ends. Monty, tell us something. Did you guys in England believe that India could pull this off? And will you all now look at the English cricket fraternity, that is, look at this Indian team very differently? Did you at any point in time think 328 achievable at the Gabba? Michael Vaughan, for example, 4-0. He's the champion of the 4-0 brigade. So good luck to him. So, thoughts about that people had written this team off and then they have showed what they are made of. Did you all think that this could be done?
I think in England, people thought that at some stage, India will always be competitive. And to be honest, this all starts back in, I think with this year's IPL in particular, every team had a youngster coming through, between the age of 18, 19, 20. And there was a question mark. Some people were thinking, well, Shubman Gill, has he played enough first-class cricket? He's only scored 500, first-class runs, only 1 century. But the way he's able to adapt, the way he's able to just take on international pressure, there is a lot to say about the IPL, that young players are now adapting to the level of international standard that is required, and he was particular one of them. Mohammad Siraj was another who was actually moving the ball far more than the Australian bowlers. These Australian bowlers, their record after 30 test matches was similar to Glenn McGrath, Brett Lee, Jason Gillespie. But I think people are beginning to forget that which team was moving the ball more, which team was getting more movement off the pitch. And Mohammad Siraj, some of them deliveries that he was bowling, I don't think they were Australian bowlers were, they weren't moving the ball. And I think that's what, where Indian cricket is right now. Indian cricket is at its strongest. And it's probably the first nation which is beginning to think that, right, if you have a successful IPL season, you can go straight into the test team. Why can't Australia do that? Have some of their big bash players and go straight into it. That myth of scoring heavy, Ranji Trophy runs or taking lots of wickets, there is a place for that with the likes of Pujara and, Hanuman Vihari. But now there is that a second sort of selection taking place where I think it all comes down from Saras Ganguly, who's been brilliant in terms of turning it around. There's a lot to say about ex-cricketers having these administration roles, for the cricketing bodies.
Interesting points being made there, Deep. Very interesting points about, Indians moving the ball more. Where is this newfound confidence coming from? And he's right about Shubman Gill. Yesterday, Gideon Haig from Australia made this point about Mayank Agarwal, that in 2018, he came straight out of the domestic structure and scored in a Boxing Day test match. This is a different India. Deep, tell me something. I mean, I was reading this tweet about by Sanjay, and I respect Sanjay for his views. And he said, there's a point there. He said, if any one of you perhaps felt that it will be 2-1, then you are entitled to criticize, otherwise not, because every great was saying based on cricketing logic. There is a point what he's saying, but I don't think every great or whoever it is entitled to say 4-0 and write this team off. Now, that doesn't show you as a great either, because I think there was lack of balance there. I think there was disrespect there. I think there was a lot being said there. So if people get turned off by that, they have reason to. So my question to you, Deep, and I've learned this from you. You are younger to me, but I've learned this. Balance, whether in media, whether in ex-cricketers, whether in whoever, like you and I, we, for example, said in that one innings about game awareness for Pujara. And we none of us said it with even a tone of disrespect. We mentioned it as a constructively critical point. So when you hear 4-0, written off, no chance, how do you react to that? I mean, do these things spur you guys on as cricketers?
Oh yes, it does. I mean, listen, if somebody's telling me that you have no chance, so first of all, I'm going in there without any pressure, because I mean, an expert has said I have no chance. So brilliant, I have no chance. So anything I do is a step above me, right? So it's a step in the right direction. So yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, I everyone has their own views, and they're I'm all right with that. But yeah, I mean, writing off, it doesn't work, does it, in sports? I mean, and that too, when you write off someone like 4-0 and all, yes, there was cricketing logic. I mean, even I thought Australia was ahead. Like, I think in this series, and this is something that I would like to ask Monty as well. Monty, would someone like England look at this series and say, you know what, we are almost in where India's position was in Australia, and India is where Australia is, favorites and blah, blah, blah. If India can do that in Australia, why can't England do that here in India? Would you think they would take that India win in Australia and kind of spare themselves on?
Interesting. Monty?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think what England are at the moment, they've got a real strong squad, similar to India, and they would think that they've got a good bunch of fast bowlers, they've got young batters coming through who are fearless as well, similar to India, right? But the one disadvantage that India have at the moment is Ravindra Jadeja. He is such a key player for the Indian team, and I think he's not going to be there for the first two test matches. There's news coming out that he may not even play for the whole series. So he's such a key player. Have India got a ready-made player in maybe another player can come through and the role that he's played at number 6, the key wickets that he took in Australia, he's going to be a key factor, a key player that is going to be missing in the Indian team, and that's where I think the likes of England would want to take huge advantage because they know that the Indian batsmen are vulnerable against Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad. They've got good, quick resources, the likes of Mark Wood, Jofra Archer, who's done really well in the IPL. Ben Stokes, another player who's been successful in the IPL. So this series is a big, big series. The whole world will be watching here because there's some good players in the England team who have had successful tournaments in the IPL as well.
Monty, before I go to Rajeshi, how good is Dom Bess and Jack Leach? From what we've seen, yes, they've picked up wickets, but how good are they? Compare them to a Graham Swan and a Monty Panesar, for example. I mean, it's difficult to sort of talk about yourself, but talk to me about some of the great English spinners that we've seen over the years, or the Indian ones. Ravi Chandran Ashwin, top of his game. So compare them and tell me how good they are, at least what you think. Monty?
Yeah, look, with Jack Leach, he's a good bowler, he gets that ball to sort of, when his action is repeatable, he's getting the timing right. He can produce good deliveries. Dom Bess is still learning. The consistency isn't quite there that we want to see from him. And, in the first innings, against Sri Lanka, he was quite lucky to get them wickets. But then there's that expectation where in the second innings, you think, well, he will produce some results, but he hasn't really bowled well as we expect him to do. So the India team, they know that the real weakness is going to be the spinners. If this Indian team can put the English spinners under pressure, they want the seamers to bowl. The more seamers bowl, then they'll get tired. And we know the psychology of Test cricket. It's about getting your seamers to bowl their second, their third spell, and that's where India can really pounce. And let's mention also just slightly on the Test match batting, Pujara. The key with this Indian batting is people who can bat long. Pujara has been unbelievable for India in Australia, and that's something that the English bowlers will target. They want to get the batsmen out who can bat long so they can bowl England out cheaply. So this is a big series, This is something that, you'll see the likes of Stuart Broad, Jimmy Anderson, probably their final tour in India, and the history of Test cricket, probably one of the best partnerships after Glenn McGrath and Shane Warne. So it'll be interesting to see what pitches will India produce. Are they really worried about Jimmy Anderson, Stuart Broad, or do they think turning pitches, our spinners are better than the English spinners, and we play spin better? We will just produce turning pitches and back our spinners to bowl the England batsmen out cheaply.
Rajeshi, will you say that this team now, the team that we are playing, more than talent, it is about attrition and fighting ability, a very Ravi Shastri imprint?
Absolutely. These guys just kept coming back. Darren Swamy tweeted, how the hell did India bounce back from 36 all out to win 2-0? I'm still trying, we still all try to wrap our heads around it. But these guys just keep coming back. Justin Langer said as much that you cannot write the Indians off at all. This is attritional cricket. This is resolute cricket. This is determination. We keep talking. These are sometimes cliched words in sports. But this Indian team has shown that, right? They've redefined the way Asian teams have gone and played in Australia. The last series, a lot of people said David Warner and Steve Smith were missing, but here you had about 80% of the regular playing 11 are not available for India throughout at different stages of the series, but they just keep coming back. And now with the England series, you'll have the entire full strength squad. Yes, Jadeja won't be available for the Test matches against England, but you have a Hardik Pandya coming back into the side. So there is, with this Indian team, you will constantly keep finding that resolute, that fighting spirit because of the processes that have been set in place. You have Washington Sundar and you have a Hardik Pandya. He's going to be a pretty key factor for the series as well there, Boria.
Deep, tell me something. I mean, I was having a chat with Sridhar this morning, and he tells me that after the Adelaide test, there was a meeting. And by the way, the Sridhar interview will be up on Sports Today very shortly. So take a look at that. Outstanding interview where he talks about multiple people. Just as an aside, he said every ball last day at Brisbane post tee, Ravi Shastri was saying shabash. And he was in that zone. So he said shabash 300 times. He said Vikram Rathore couldn't sit, so he was just jabbering away in nervousness. He said Sridhar was jogging a ball like this constantly, couldn't sort of sit. Bharat Arun went down to speak to Ajinkya and Rohit and ask, what will you send instructions out? And he then says, Washington Sundar of all people, on debut, tells Rishabh Pant, you just bat through, I will hit Pat Cummins out of the attack. And I'm like, what? I mean, this is quite unbelievable to me. But coming back, and also please watch the David Warner interview where he talks about Natarajan. You will love that interview. It's already published on Sports Today. But Deep, apparently that meeting, Ravi Shastri, when the people who attended that meeting were leaving, he said, this 36 is a badge that we will forever have to wear, either in disgrace or you can convert it into a badge of honor if you turn it around and become the world's best cricket team. If you really read into those two sentences, unreal words.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, post that test match, the Adelaide test match, we did discuss the fact that, when something like that happens in a crisis situation, a team can go two ways, or whatever, an individual or a team can go two ways. Either you go further down, you kind of sink into it, or I mean, a situation like this can galvanize and say, you know what, let's just try and get this out of the system. So, I mean, there's only two ways to this, and obviously, Indian team management or Indian team, whatever they did, they got it right, and they actually used it as a glue, as a catalyst to get themselves going. And this obviously is one of the, one of the best turnarounds that you'd see, or I'd see. I mean, I haven't seen, apart from 2001, I haven't seen too many of those turnarounds. But yeah, I mean, what a series that was. But you know what? When you come back to this England series, things are a little different. You look at the England side. I mean, again, they also need to win to qualify for the World Test Championship. So this has a context, this series, apart from an India-England series, this has a bigger context to it. Secondly, England is already playing in Sri Lanka. So it's not that they will land in India and they have to get used to the conditions. We are talking about Sri Lanka and the first two test match in Chennai, which is a half an hour, 40-minute flight from Galle. So, I mean, the conditions aren't too different, right? So, I think they are very well they're ready for this series. They're used to those conditions. And obviously, to a great extent, because the home series, the pressure would be on India and all those big names who are coming back. Because obviously, the benchmark, because of the Australia series, has gone higher now. And all the big names coming back have to step up now.
Monty, last 3 minutes on the show, so you take the first one. How will you assess? Do you think India go in as favourites? Do you actually think that England really has a serious chance? Or India now has 1 foot in that World Test Championship final? Or is it still premature to say that? Your thoughts?
Look, India go favourites, being the home nation, and yeah, I agree with Deep. Dasgupta, that the performances that you'll expect. India fans will be probably expecting a whitewash like we talked about. A brown wash, right? Will be 4-0. That's what they're expecting, and we've got to put things into perspective. I think England's strength is going to be that middle order, the likes of Moeen Ali, Ben Stokes, Chris Wokes. That they can bat, they can bowl well. And how will, the sort of top order of Indian batting, how will they cope with the likes of Jofra Archer, the likes of the sort of skill of Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad? So I think that's going to be the real contest, The spin department, I'll be surprised if the Indian batsmen, struggle against the spin. I think the real contest will be, the top order of India batting against well-experienced English bowlers.
Nicely said. Deep, before I go to Rajesh and close, Jofra Archer, James Anderson and Stuart Broad. Quite spectacular attack that is.
Mark Wood.
And Mark Wood. I think Mark Wood has been rested for the first two games. So these three, if you go with, at least for the first 2 test matches, I mean, come on. Jimmy Anderson, Stuart Broad, 1,400 wickets? Jofra Archer, the newest exciting sensation there. Quite an attack that.
Oh, absolutely. Even though I don't think all 3 of them will play, I think Ben Stokes would be the third steamer with 2 of them and obviously the 2 spinners. I mean, it's a great series. It's an absolutely brilliant series because one of the things which Monty mentioned right at the top was the pitch. What are you going to offer them? See, if you offer England ranked turners, suddenly I mean, you giving the England spinners who are not experienced. Like I said, I wouldn't want to compare them to Swanee or Monty for that matter. They're inexperienced, but you're leveling the playing field if you're giving them a ranked turner. So, and if you're giving them a bouncy green top, which is very difficult in Chennai, then again you're kind of making someone like an Anderson more potent in these conditions. So it's going to be a tricky one. I just think it's going to be a normal batting track which India provides for these test matches. It's going to be a very, very interesting one. I'm telling you, this is not going to be an easy walk in the park for India either.
Rajeshi, this point about Sri Lanka that both Deep and Monty made, how significant is that? Because they came around what 13, 14 January, so they will already have been here for 3 weeks in the subcontinent. How important is that for acclimatization and getting them ready?
Go back to 2012, Boria, and this is what we were also worried about. I think there was a sense of confidence in the Indian team because back up until then we hadn't lost a home series in 8 or 9 years. But then that England team, right, Kevin Peterson's reintegration into the England side, they had come off a solid series and practice in subcontinental conditions, and then again this playing in Sri Lanka, like Deep said, a 30-minute flight from Colombo to Chennai, barely any difference in conditions. It's going to hold England in good stead, and the way they have played, also the way Joe Root played in the course of the double hundred. There was criticism would be a harsh word, but questions were raised over Joe Root's inability sometimes to convert those 70s and 80s into big hundreds. And as a captain, he's been leading from the front. So everything has fallen into place for that England lineup. Also, you look at the two Sibley and Crawley, and Bairstow coming in at number 3. You have Joe Root with Ben Stokes coming back into the side. It's a phenomenal side. Having been used to those conditions, it's going to be a tricky series. It's going to be fascinating though to watch it at least.
And if I may just add to what Rajdeep just mentioned, the fact that if you look at the England batting order, they're all very good against spin. I mean, gone are the days where the overseas batsman won't or can't play spin anymore, right? You look at Ben Stokes, he plays spin well. Joe Root is brilliant against spin. Oli Pope plays spin well. Obviously, Lawrence we saw. I don't know whether he's going to get that game or not. I mean, in the first test at least. I mean, he was brilliant on his debut as well. So you have all these English batsmen. Bairstow, he's fantastic against spin. So you have quality batsmen who can play spin as well.
Okay. I will finish on this note that Monty Panesar, it's a request on behalf of everyone at Sports Today that kindly join us for a couple more shows because you are fantastic to have. I know you are busy and you are extremely difficult to get hold of, but do spare some time for us. Deep Dasgupta, always a pleasure to have you. Rajarshi, it's something that we are all looking forward to. This England side is a spicy side. This will be a really spicy series. And we can't wait to see some crowds back. 2021 is a year of cricket. And on Sports Today, we will celebrate this series as we have done all through the Australian summer. We will request Monty to come back, so you will have him back, hopefully, if he gives us time. Deep, myself, Rajarshi, Monty, on behalf of all of us, do watch the specials. Do watch this one. Obviously, the Sridhar interview, the David Warner interview. You've seen Siraj, his first interview, Hanuma Vihari's first interview. By the way, I'm promising you there are many more firsts coming in the next 3 days. I don't want to say any more. There are many more firsts, and I'll say this to end. Virat Kohli is not simply great for Indian cricket. He's great for world cricket. Anyone who disputes that is an idiot. And we say that very clearly on Sports Today. We don't mince our words. I'll finish off on that. Join me at 5 at 5. Plenty of news to share with you. For the moment, thank you very much. Subscribe to the channel. It's your platform.